The Galactic Council Chamber was older than most stars. Its walls curved upward in spirals of black stone, carved by species that had gone extinct before Earth's oceans had formed. 4,000 delegations sat in their designated sections, arranged by seniority. The elder races occupied the center. Everyone else filled the edges. Humanity sat at the very back. They had been sitting there for 200 years. Ambassador Yusuf Kante stood at the speaking platform, his dark hands resting on the ancient podium. He was 63 years old. He had given this same presentation 46 times before. The data changed. The response never did. The scour has expanded by 0.3 light-years in the past decade, he said. His voice was calm, measured, the voice of a man who had learned to keep his feelings locked in a box. Our projections indicate it will reach the first populated systems within 90 years. On the massive display behind him, stars blinked out one by one in a simulation. A spreading darkness ate through the galaxy's edge like rot through fruit. We are requesting, Kante continued, a joint expeditionary fleet, 30 vessels from each willing species, a combined scientific and military force to investigate the scour's origin and determine if intervention is possible. He stopped speaking. He waited. The Valoon delegate rose from her seat. She was tall and thin, with skin like polished marble and eyes that held no pupils. The Valoon had been spacefaring for 11 million years. They found most younger species amusing in the way humans found puppies amusing. Ambassador Kante, she said. Her translator rendered her voice as silk over broken glass. We appreciate humanity's enthusiasm. It is one of your more endearing qualities. Scattered sounds from the chamber. Not quite laughter. Something older and colder. However, the Veluan continued, the scour is a natural phenomenon. Your species has existed for a mere heartbeat. You lack the perspective to understand threats that operate on deep time scales. The Council has studied the scour for 11,000 years. We have committees dedicated to... Committees, Kante said. The chamber went quiet. Interrupting an elder race was not done. It simply was not done. 11,000 years of committees, Kante said. His voice remained calm, but something had shifted beneath it. A fault line under still water. And in that time, the scour has consumed 400 star systems, 12 billion sentient beings, 3 entire species, erased from existence. The Veluan's expression did not change. But the universe operates on scales your kind cannot. My kind, Kante said, built our first spaceship 400 years ago. In that time, we have established 200 colonies, developed 17 forms of faster-than-light travel, and contributed to 43 joint scientific initiatives with Council species. He leaned forward slightly. What have your committees produced? The silence stretched. The Valoon delegate's marble skin seemed to harden further. Ambassador Kante, she said finally, your request is denied. Return to your seat. Kante stood motionless for a long moment. Then he bowed, the way humans always bowed, and walked back to the far edge of the chamber, where his delegation waited. His aide, a young woman named Ken, touched his arm as he sat down. Ambassador. Not here, he said quietly. Not yet. The session continued. Other species presented other concerns. Trade disputes. Territorial boundaries. A mining rights conflict in a system no human had ever visited. The scour was not mentioned again. 3 hours later, the session ended. Delegations filed out through their designated exits. Humanity's exit was the smallest, tucked behind a support column, easy to miss if you did not know where to look. In the elevator, Kante finally let his hands shake. Chen watched him but said nothing. She had worked with him for 6 years. She had never seen him like this. 47 times, Kante said. His voice was different now, rougher, the polish stripped away. 47 times I have stood in that chamber and asked for help. Not demanded, not threatened, asked. The elevator descended through layers of ancient stone. They think we're children, he continued. Amusing, harmless, good for building things and running trade routes. They pat us on the head and send us back to our corner. Ambassador, Chen said carefully, what do we do now? Conte was quiet for a long time. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto a corridor that led to humanity's small embassy. Compared to the Valoon's sprawling complex, it looked like a storage closet. Now, Conte said, we stop asking. He walked toward the embassy. Chen followed. Sir, contact Earth, Conte said. Tell them the Council has denied our 47th request. Use the phrase, final refusal. They will know what it means. Chen stopped walking. Ambassador, that phrase, that's the activation code for. I know what it is. Conte reached the embassy door. He paused with his hand on the panel. For 200 years, he said, we have played by their rules. We have been patient. We have been kind. We have asked nicely and accepted every rejection with a smile. His eyes were tired. Tired in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep. Do you know why we did that, Chen? She shook her head. Because we wanted to believe they would help. We wanted to believe that if we just explained it clearly enough, showed them enough data, demonstrated enough good faith, he trailed off. We wanted to be part of something. Partners, not children, not pets. And now, Conte opened the door. Now we do what humans have always done when the world refuses to change. He stepped inside. We change it ourselves. 3 days later, every human ship in the galaxy went silent. Every human colony stopped transmitting. Every human citizen working on joint projects quietly packed their things and left. The galaxy barely noticed. Humans came and went. They were reliable, but not important. Not really. It would be 6 months before anyone realized they should have been paying attention. By then, it would be far too late. The Keth Collective received the distress signal at 0347 Galactic Standard Time. A minor species called the Halani. 2 billion souls spread across 3 planets in a system at the galaxy's edge. The scour reached them on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, there was nothing left. Not the planets, not the star, not even the empty space where they had been. Just darkness, spreading outward like a stain. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. The Keth delegate expressed profound condolences. The Valoon delegate called it a tragedy of cosmic proportions. The Holomimes, ancient beings of poor thought who had not spoken in 600 years, remained silent. Humanity sent a delegation to the memorial service. They stood in the back, as always. But something was different. They wept. Other species watched them with confusion. The Halani and humans had never been close. They had traded occasionally, shared a few research stations, nothing more. Yet the human delegation stood with tears running down their faces, holding a vigil that lasted 3 days. Strange creatures, the Valoon ambassador murmured to her aide. So emotional. So excessive. 2 weeks later, Yusuf Conte requested permission to address the council. It was granted, though several elder race delegates did not bother to attend. They sent junior representatives instead. The human ambassador's speeches had become predictable. But this speech was different. Conte walked to the podium with no datapad, no displays, no charts or projections. He stood in silence for a full minute, letting the chamber settle. 2 billion, he said finally. That is how many died when the scour took the Halani system. 2 billion people who woke up that morning expecting an ordinary day. 2 billion people who will never wake up again. This was not the usual diplomatic language. My species mourned them, Conte continued. Some of you found that strange. We did not know them, after all. They were not our allies, not our trading partners, not our friends. He paused. But they were people, and people should not die while others watch and do nothing. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Velun junior delegate shifted uncomfortably in her seat. For 200 years, Conte said, humanity has asked this council for help. We have presented data. We have proposed solutions. We have requested cooperation. And for 200 years, we have been told to wait, to be patient, to trust in committees and studies, and the wisdom of our elders. His voice hardened. The Halani trusted that wisdom. They are dead now. The murmur grew louder. Several delegates rose from their seats. Conte ignored them. This is not a request, he said. This is a warning. Humanity has developed its own projections, our own analysis, our own solutions. We have been working on them since the day we first learned about the scour, because we knew, his voice cracked slightly, we knew you would never help us. He steadied himself. We are asking one last time. Join us. Work with us. Let us face this threat together, as partners, as equals. He looked around the chamber. Or don't. But understand that we will act, with or without you. The scour will be stopped. The only question is whether you will be part of that effort, or whether you will stand aside while the children save your galaxy. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the hollow minds stirred. They were ancient beyond measure, beings of pure consciousness, housed in crystalline matrices that predated most stars. When they spoke, their voice echoed through every translator in the chamber simultaneously. The words carried weight, pressing down on everyone present like a physical force. Your courage is noted. Your solutions are not required. Return to your trade routes. Leave the deep matters to those who understand them. The chamber erupted in sound. Not laughter exactly. Something worse. Relief. The elder races had spoken. The matter was settled. The humans had overstepped, and they had been put back in their place. Conte stood motionless at the podium. 11 seconds passed. The laughter faded. The chamber grew quiet again, because something in the human stillness was wrong. Unsettling, like watching a predator decide whether to strike. Conte reached up and removed his translation pendant. He set it on the podium with a soft click. Then he spoke. The words were human words, old ones, rough and guttural, from a language that had existed before humanity reached the stars. No one in the chamber understood them, but everyone felt them. The sounds scraped against alien ears like stone against metal. When he finished, Conte picked up his pendant, placed it back around his neck, and walked out of the chamber. He did not bow. Behind him, chaos erupted. Delegates shouted. Aides scrambled for translators. A junior Velun diplomat grabbed the arm of a human aide who was hurrying after his ambassador. What did he say? She demanded. What were those words? The aide looked at her. His face was pale, but there was something else there too. Something that looked almost like pity. He said goodbye. The Velun frowned. That's all? No. The aide pulled his arm free. He said, fine, we'll do it ourselves, and God help you when we're done. He walked away. The Velun stood frozen in the emptying chamber, turning the words over in her mind. They made no sense. Humans were traitors, engineers. They built things, and smiled too much. They were not a threat. They could not be a threat. But somewhere deep in her ancient brain, in the part that remembered what it meant to be prey, something stirred. She was afraid. She did not know why. Not yet. Commander Tivash had served Veluan intelligence for 3,000 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched species evolve, stagnate, and go extinct. Very little surprised her anymore. The file on her desk surprised her. This cannot be correct, she said. Her aide shifted nervously. We have confirmed it through 17 independent sources, Commander. Human communication traffic has ceased. Completely. Every ship, every station, every colony world, they have gone dark. Dark, Tivash repeated. Silent. No transmissions, no beacon signals, nothing. Tivash stared at the report. In 11 million years of Veluan civilization, no species had ever managed to go completely silent. Communication left traces, energy signatures, background noise. The galaxy hummed with the constant chatter of 10,000 species. But the humans had simply stopped. "What about our monitoring stations?" she asked. "The surveillance networks we placed in their systems?" Her aide's face went pale. "Disabled, Commander. All of them. We did not even detect the intrusions. One moment they were functional, the next—" He spread his hands. Tevash was quiet for a long time. "Pull everything we have on their research programs," she said finally. "Everything. Military, scientific, cultural. I want to know what they have been working on." The investigation took 3 weeks. What Tevash found made her blood run cold. The Council had monitored humanity's military development closely. Strict limits had been placed on their fleet size, their weapons technology, their expansion rate. Humans had followed these limits perfectly. Their military was modest, their weapons conventional, their territory contained. But the military was not where they had been hiding their work. The funds were buried in agricultural subsidies, cultural preservation grants, educational research initiatives. Hundreds of small programs, each one unremarkable on its own. Together, they formed a budget larger than most species' entire governments. The project had a name, Prometheus, and it had been running for 200 years. Far from the Council's eyes, in a system humanity had registered as a nature preserve. The first of the Prometheus fleet hung in the darkness. The ships did not look built, they looked grown. Their hulls curved in organic spirals, covered in patterns that shifted and moved like living tissue. Their engines did not match any known physics. They burned with light that was somehow dark, impossible to look at directly, wrong in a way that made the brain itch. General Amara Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the lead ship. She was 71 years old, with gray hair cropped close to her skull, and scars running down the left side of her face. She had commanded soldiers for 50 years. These would be her last orders. "Status report," she said. 400 vessels ready, her executive officer replied. "Crews are aboard. Systems are operational." "The drive?" "Functional," he hesitated. "Mostly." Okonkwo allowed herself a small smile. "Mostly will have to do." She looked out the viewport at the fleet arranged around them. 2 centuries of secret work. 3 generations of scientists, engineers, and soldiers who had lived and died without ever telling anyone what they were building. All for this moment. "Open a channel to Earth," she said. The communication screen flickered. Ambassador Conte appeared, looking older than he had at the council session. More tired. But there was fire in his eyes. "General," he said, "is it time?" "It's time." Okonkwo straightened. "The council?" "Still debating whether to censure us for my outburst." A thin smile crossed Conte's face. "They have no idea what's coming." "Good." Okonkwo turned to her crew. "Begin launch sequence. All ships." Around her, the bridge erupted in controlled activity. Officers called out confirmations. Lights flickered as systems came online. The ship hummed with power that had been dormant for decades. "General," her science officer said, "I have to ask, are we sure this will work?" Okonkwo looked at her. Lieutenant Priya Sharma, young, brilliant. She had spent 15 years studying the scour, analyzing the data from probes humanity had secretly sent into its depths. "You tell me," Okonkwo said. "You're the one who cracked its language." Sharma swallowed. "The scour is not natural. It is a machine. Ancient, possibly older than the galaxy itself. It operates on a loop, consuming matter to fuel its expansion. But it has a control system, a command frequency. And we can access it? We can try." Sharma's hands trembled slightly. "What we found in there, General, whoever built the scour, they wanted it to be stopped. They left the controls exposed on purpose, like a test." "A test," Okonkwo repeated, "to see if anyone would be smart enough to find them, and brave enough to use them." Okonkwo nodded slowly. "The elder races have known about the scour for 11,000 years. They never sent probes inside, never tried to understand it. They just watched it spread, and held committee meetings. And we were curious. Okonkwo turned back to the viewport. That's always been our problem. We can't leave anything alone. The fleet was moving now. 400 ships, sliding into formation like a flock of birds that had never practiced together, but somehow knew exactly where to go. Send a message to the council, Okonkwo said. Open channel. I want everyone to hear this. Her communications officer nodded. Channel open, General. Okonkwo straightened her uniform. When she spoke, her voice carried across 1,000 light-years into every receiver in council space. This is General Amara Okonkwo, commanding officer of the human vessel Defiance. We are en route to engage the Scour. We have requested assistance from the Galactic Council 47 times. Each request was denied. She paused. We asked nicely. You refused. Fine. The fleet began to accelerate. Stars blurred around them. We'll do it ourselves. The channel closed. 400 human ships vanished into the darkness, heading toward the edge of the galaxy where the stars were dying. Behind them, the council exploded into chaos. Commander Tivash stood in her office, watching the fleet's trajectory on her display. Her hands were shaking. They're not running, she whispered. Her aides stared at the screen. Commander, they're not running, she repeated. They're attacking. They're actually attacking the Scour. She reached for her communication panel. Get me the council. Emergency session, now. But even as she made the call, she knew it was too late. Whatever was about to happen, the galaxy could only watch. The children had stopped asking permission, and nothing would ever be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in 3,000 years. Every species sent representatives. Even the ones who usually slept through meetings arrived with their full delegations. The chamber hummed with noise. Arguments erupted across species lines. The Valoon demanded that humanity be declared rogue, and their systems blockaded. The Keth wanted to send an intercept fleet to stop them before they reached the Scour. A dozen minor species proposed sanctions, condemnations, formal protests. The Hollow Mind said nothing. Commander Tivash stood at the back of the chamber, watching the chaos with cold eyes. She had spent the last 72 hours reviewing everything the Valoon knew about humanity. Their history, their psychology, their strange customs and stranger beliefs. What she found terrified her. They call it determination, she had told her superiors. When humans decide to do something, they do not stop. They do not give up. They continue until they succeed or die trying. Sometimes both. Her superiors had dismissed her concerns. Humans were children, emotional, reckless. Their attack on the Scour was suicide, nothing more. The council would send condolences to their surviving colonies and move on. Then the first reports came in. The human fleet had entered the Scour. Not approached it, not orbited near it, entered it. In 11,000 years of observation, no ship had ever entered the Scour and survived. Probes vanished instantly. Automated vessels were consumed within seconds. The darkness was absolute, total, hungry. But the human ships did not vanish. This is impossible, a Velen representative stammered as the data scrolled across the council's displays. The Scour devours everything. Nothing survives inside it. The data continued to scroll. 400 human ships, moving deeper into the darkness. Not being destroyed. Not even being damaged. They were communicating with something inside. Fragments of intercepted transmissions filled the chamber. Human voices, calm and professional, reading off coordinates and command codes. And beneath them, something else. A signal that did not sound like any language the council had ever recorded. Old sounds, vast sounds, the voice of something that had been waiting for a very long time. They're not fighting it, Tivash breathed. They're talking to it. The Hollow Mind stirred. Impossible, they said, their voice echoing through every translator. The score is a force of nature. It cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be. They stopped. On the display, something was happening. The darkness was changing, collapsing inward on itself. Stars flickered at the edge of the score, stars that had been dead for centuries. They were coming back on. Their light was strange, shifted into spectrums that made no sense. But they were burning. Where there had been nothing but void, suns were igniting. "What are they doing?" someone shouted. No one answered. No one could answer. They could only watch as humanity did the impossible. General Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by darkness that pressed against the hull like a living thing. Her displays showed impossible readings. Her crew worked in focused silence, executing commands they had trained their entire lives for. "Lieutenant Sharma," she said. "Status." Sharma's hands flew across her console. Her face was pale, lit by the glow of screens showing data that would have driven most scientists mad. "The control frequency is responding," she said. "We're feeding it new instructions, reversing the consumption loop, making it rebuild instead of destroy." "Can we sustain it?" "Unknown." Sharma's voice cracked. "General, the energy requirements are astronomical. We're burning through our reserves faster than projected. If we can't complete the reversal in the next 40 minutes, we die." Okonkwo finished. "I know. Keep working." Around them ships began to fail. The darkness was not passive. It fought back. Vessels flickered out of existence one by one, their crews swallowed by the void. But the others kept pushing forward. A transmission crackled through the bridge. Open channel. Every ship in the fleet and everyone in council space, listening in. Okonkwo keyed her communicator. "This is General Okonkwo. The scour is not a natural phenomenon. It is a machine, built by someone millions of years ago and left running on autopilot. It was never meant to destroy the galaxy. It was meant to test it." She looked out at the churning darkness around them. A test to see if the species that came after would work together, would combine their knowledge and their courage to stop a threat that none of them could face alone. Her voice hardened. "You failed that test. For 11,000 years, you watched and debated and did nothing. You let billions die because helping them would have required effort, required risk, required you to treat younger species as equals instead of children." Stars burst into existence outside the viewport. New suns, born from the death of the old. "We passed the test, and now the scour is ours to command." She cut the transmission. In the council chamber, silence reigned. The Veluan representative had collapsed into her seat. The Keth delegation was frozen. Even the hollow minds seemed stunned. Commander Tavash stood alone, watching the display, running calculations in her head. If the humans could stop the scour, if they could control it, what else could they do? What else had they been hiding? And why, she thought with a chill that reached her bones, why had they waited so long to act? She remembered the human ambassador's words. "We wanted to believe you would help." They had not been weak. They had been patient. Patient like a predator waiting for prey to make a mistake. Patient like a parent waiting for a child to learn a lesson. The humans had been the adults all along. And now the galaxy knew it. The hollow minds spoke, their voice smaller than it had ever been. "We may have miscalculated." No one laughed, no one argued. Every species in that chamber was running the same calculation. If humanity had this power and chose to hide it, if they had watched the galaxy ignore them for 200 years, if they had decided at any point to stop being patient, what would they have done? What could they still do? The chamber remained silent as humanity continued to perform miracles in the darkness at the edge of the galaxy. No one knew what came next. That uncertainty was the most terrifying thing of all. The human fleet returned 6 months later. Of the 400 ships that had entered the scour, 273 came back. The rest were buried in the darkness they had conquered, their crews entombed in the hearts of newborn stars. There were no victory parades on Earth, no celebrations, No speeches about human greatness or galactic salvation. The ships docked quietly. The surviving crews walked off their vessels and went home to their families. General Okonkwo's body was not among the survivors. She had transferred to a failing ship in the final hours of the operation, evacuating its crew to other vessels before the darkness took her. Her last transmission was 3 words: "Job's done. Good." Ambassador Yusuf Kante returned to the Galactic Council 1 week after the fleet's arrival. He walked to the speaking platform the same way he always had. He spoke in the same measured voice. But everything was different. The chamber was full, every seat occupied, every eye fixed on the human at the podium. No one whispered, no one fidgeted, no one looked away. "The threat has been neutralized," Kante said. "The entity we called the Scar is now dormant. The systems it consumed cannot be restored, but its expansion has stopped permanently. Our preliminary findings will be shared with all Council species who wish to review them." He paused. "That is all I have to report." He turned to leave. "Ambassador Kante." The voice came from the Valuan section. The senior delegate rose from her seat, her marble skin paler than usual, her eyes fixed on the human, with an expression that might have been fear. "I wish to offer," she said slowly, as if each word cost her something, "the formal apologies of the Valuan people. We were wrong to dismiss your warnings. We were wrong to refuse your requests for cooperation. We were wrong to treat your species as, stop." Kante's voice was gentle, almost kind. The delegate fell silent. "We do not want your apologies," he said. "We do not want your guilt. We do not want you to feel bad about what happened." He looked around the chamber. 4,000 species, watching him with mixtures of awe and terror and shame. "We wanted your help. We wanted to be your partners. We wanted to face this threat together, the way civilized people should." His voice softened further. "You said no, so we did it alone. There is nothing to apologize for. The matter is closed." He walked back to Humanity's section, not the back of the chamber anymore. They had been moved to the center, next to the elder races, whether they liked it or not. The session continued. Other business was discussed. Trade agreements were renegotiated. Humans did not ask for better terms. Other species offered them anyway. Kante accepted each offer with polite thanks, and nothing more. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed. Human ships traveled freely through Council space. No one stopped them for inspections anymore. No one demanded permits or registrations. Human diplomats were invited to meetings that had been closed to them for centuries. Human scientists were offered positions at research facilities that had previously considered them unqualified. The Hollow Minds requested a formal audience with human leadership. It was the first time in recorded history they had requested anything from anyone. The meeting lasted 6 hours. No records were kept. When it ended, the Hollow Minds released a single statement. "We understand now. We will do better." No one knew what that meant. The humans did not explain. Commander Tavash was reassigned. Her new role, permanent liaison to human space. She was not sure if it was a promotion or a punishment. Her first assignment was to tour a human research facility. Standard diplomatic visit. Nothing special. The facility was located on a small moon, orbiting a gas giant, in a system humanity had claimed a century ago. It looked unremarkable from the outside. Warehouses, landing pads, a cafeteria. But the technology inside made Tavash's head spin. Her guide was a human engineer named Priya Sharma, the same Sharma who had cracked the Scour's command frequency. She was older now, her hair gray, her hands stained with grease and chemical burns. She walked with a limp from injuries sustained during the operation. "This is our primary development center," Sharma said, leading Tavash through a corridor lined with equipment that made no sense. "We have 47 similar facilities throughout human space." "How long have these existed?" "This one? About 150 years. The oldest has been running since we first made contact with the council. Tivash stopped walking. You've been preparing for this since the beginning? Sharma looked at her. Her expression was patient, tired. We've been preparing for the possibility that no one would help us since the beginning. There's a difference. They walked in silence for a while. Tivash's mind raced with questions. Finally, one pushed its way to the surface. You could have done this centuries ago. You had the capability, the technology. Why wait? Why ask us at all? Sharma considered the question for a long time. They reached a window overlooking a laboratory where human scientists worked on machines that bent light in impossible ways. Because we wanted to believe you would help, she said finally. Tivash frowned. That's what Ambassador Kante said. Because it's the truth. We didn't hide our capabilities because we wanted to surprise you. We hid them because we hoped we would never need to use them. We hoped that if we were patient enough, kind enough, persistent enough, you would eventually see us as equals, as partners. And when we didn't, Sharma's smile was sad. Then we did what we had to do, but we didn't enjoy it. We didn't want to prove that we were stronger than you. We wanted to prove that we were worthy of standing beside you. She turned back to the window. That's who we wanted to be. Tivash stood beside her, watching the humans work, building, creating, solving problems that the elder races had declared unsolvable for millions of years. What happens now? She asked. Now, Sharma shrugged. Now we keep working. Keep hoping that someday the galaxy will catch up. And if it doesn't, Sharma's reflection smiled at her from the glass. Then, we'll be ready. 1 year after the Scour's defeat, the Lewin educational programs were updated. The section on humanity was rewritten. The old description, the one that had been used for 2 centuries, was deleted. Cooperative, harmless, minor industrial capacity. The new entry was shorter. 3 words that Valuan children would memorize and carry with them for the rest of their lives. 3 words that summarized everything the galaxy had learned about the strange, patient, terrifying species from the unremarkable planet called Earth. Do not underestimate. Somewhere in human space, Ambassador Yusuf Kante read the updated entry and allowed himself a small, tired smile. Then he went back to work. There was always more to do.